Well, as we're all watching with horror and concern the turmoil unfold in Afghanistan, I'm joined by Adrian Levy, who's a best-selling author and journalist, author most recently of spy stories inside the secret world of the RAW and the ISI. He's written also several other books along with Kathy Scott Clark on both the spy agencies as well as terrorism and so on in the subcontinent. He joins us from London. Adrian, thank you for joining us. Good to have you on at this very difficult time. The big question really, Adrian, I wanted to start by asking you is about now increasingly the criticism, the focus on Pakistan as playing a critical role in harboring and nourishing the Taliban, in a sense enabling this resurgence. In your own reporting of it, how much is that is true? How much has the ISI really been involved in all of this?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you. First of all, everything we're seeing at the moment is both momentous, hard to totally assay and to understand, and also we're mindful of the kind of the personal tragedies that are taking place, the humanitarian tragedy that's taking place. In terms of the ISI role, I don't think that is anyone's focus right now. I think what people are looking back on are the stalemate onwards from 2006 and the misconceived US military invasion, the prosecution of that war from 2006 onwards. And of course, before that, the decisions to fight two wars simultaneously, including the invasion of Iraq, which led to a drawdown in Afghanistan. Sure. And, you know, when we look back at that, I think it must be really one of the most momentous strategic mistakes that was made really by the US, both military and politically. So I think the focus really is on that, and the ISI's role in shepherding the Taliban has never been disguised, and certainly became a cause for a cooling off between ISI and CIA from 2007 onwards. Undoubtedly that was the case, but then, you know, Pakistan never in that sense changed its course. We reflected on a meeting we had with the one of the ISI chiefs, General SNL Haq, who was moved into the ISI in November 2001, and one of his first functions as ISI chief was to get together a plan fronted by Saudi Arabia to safeguard the Taliban in Afghanistan. He got backing for that from elements of the Tony Blair government in the UK, and all of them trooped off to Washington to sell this to Dick Cheney, the vice president. And Cheney refused to accept that Taliban had any role to play, and similarly refused to accept efforts by Iran to hand over the bin Laden family and military commanders for Al-Qaeda in 2002 and 2003. And so these missteps between 2001 and 2003, and instead the continual passage towards war in Iraq, war in Afghanistan, have led to hundreds of thousands of lives being lost and the chaos we see now.
Right. But Adrian, I mean, to that extent, you're right to say, of course, it's never been secret, the ISI support, but the fact that the Taliban were able to hold off, the combined force of the US Army for almost 20 years have now literally taken the country back in a matter of weeks. How much of that do you think is being seen within Pakistan, especially within the ISI, as a kind of quote-unquote victory?
I think it's seen as a victory. I undoubtedly do. I think that they're also mindful and concerned of what happens next. Last time something similar to this happened, if you think about, for example, the enormous military operations that took place along the Durran line in South and North Waziristan, there was a humanitarian tragedy, the movement of millions of refugees that caused an enormous amount of political instability for Pakistan. And also all of the terrorism, the internal terrorism that claimed tens of thousands of lives inside Pakistan. So I think they have to be careful what they wish for. On one hand, they undoubtedly will be, and are delighted to have the prospect of an administration in Kabul that is pro-Islamabad, pro-Pindi, pro the PAC military project. But on the other hand, they are also wondering what the ramifications of this will be in terms of internal stability, in the same way that India is. ungoverned spaces in Afghanistan present huge counter-terrorism problems, huge terrorism problems for the region and the world. You know, Pulwama was plotted by Jaish-e-Mohammed inside Afghanistan in a series of compounds where they had taken up occupation alongside Al-Qaeda bomb makers and fighters.
Right.
And so if that kind of amalgam exists in Afghanistan and cannot be routed, there'll certainly be fear for that. Fear in Pakistan, fear in India, fear in the West.
And also, Adrian, question that comes up has been coming up for so many years, but I wanted to get your sense of it from your own reporting. There's this whole frustration with the West and particularly with America that given this very explicit relationship between Pakistan, ISI and the Taliban and similar groups, why doesn't the West do more about that? I don't know if in your own reporting you were able to find some answers to that.
I mean, it's an age-old question. First of all, Pakistan was seen as perhaps the prime partner for America in the post-9/11 war because of the need of a land route for shipping and supplies, and also political platforms later to launch their drone campaign, renditions, black sites, etc. So the CIA needed them, listening in, aerial surveillance. Of course, Al-Qaeda decamped into Pakistan, so the counter-Al-Qaeda operations inside Pakistan, which were amazingly successful, could only take place between Pakistan and CIA. And once they had been completed, then what you saw was a cooling off between CIA and Pakistan, and in fact a wooing of India as China raised itself as a competitor for the US. And so CIA moved towards the Indian intelligence services and security apparatus. Right. And at the end of the day, whatever America wished for, it couldn't undo the national security interests of Pakistan. And in that relationship, Pakistan was absolutely over in that it had certain lines it wasn't prepared to cross. One of those was its maintaining its ability to influence which government would come next in Afghanistan. And this whole notion that there was a grand imperial project that America was going to push through with ISAF forces has plainly been shown to be a folly, and if not surreal. They had government in Kabul and nowhere else outside. They claimed they had a national army that they'd constructed, but actually it was an army that protected Kabul and melted away when the Taliban moved forward. So there are many things that history will need to re-examine looking at this 20-year period. Many different complex relationships. And the Pakistan-American one is, of course, one that is fraught always with difficulties.
Right. Well, as you said, deeply concerning for not just us in India, but the whole world. Adrian Levy, thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Thank you.
Great pleasure. Thank you.